When I came across this mid-80s mountain bike, it intrigued me because of the smoky pattern going on with the paint job. With no stickers on the bike, I asked the previous owner if he knew what brand the bike was, and he said he thought it was a Kuwahara Terminator. Not sure if that was accurate or not, but I really like mid-80s Chro-Mo steel bikes, especially with LX Exage components, and went ahead and bought the bike for $30. So when I started stripping the frame to complete the paint touch-ups, I noticed that the seat stays did not have the same geometry of most Kuwaharas that you see out there. Most Kuwaharas use traditional seat stays, where the stays connect to the junction of the top tube and the seat tube. Whereas this bike used a wishbone seat stay, where the stays merge into a single tube before attaching to the seat tube. With this in mind, I decided to do some Google image searching, and this bike popped up. The bikes are almost identical, including the paint jobs. So now knowing that I really have a Tech Nova Pro with Exage group set, I'll get going on the rebuild. As a fair bit of the frame was rashed up, I decided to try and keep as much of the original smoky paint job as possible. Not perfect, but pretty good to maintain the originality of the bike. Anyway, next I'll install the fork using a high-quality waterproof grease. As I'm installing the fork, it's interesting to mention that Tech Nova Pro was apparently a brand owned and marketed by Cycletech, a company based in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, during the mid-80s to early 90s. I decided to modernize the original stem to a threadless stem using a 22.2mm to 26.8mm stem adapter. The stem adapter allows a variety of stems to be used, and in my case I'll be using a 25.4mm stem. For the stem bolts, I'll use a number 5 hex wrench and retorque all of the bolts to the final torque once the bike is completed. I've got a nice set of handlebars with a lovely rise and upright riding position, which I think will work great for this build. Next, I'll go ahead and install the bottom bracket, which I've already degreased and cleaned up. Note the longer side of the axle goes towards the drive side of the bike. And then I'll grease up the bearings, noting which way the bearings face on the axle. And then I'll install the axle with the longer side pointing towards the drive side of the bike. Install the lock ring and torque the lock ring so the axle spins freely and there's no play in the axle. With the bottom bracket installed, the Shimano LX M452 cranks will go on using a 14mm socket to tighten the bolts. The array of 26-inch wheels cleaned up nice, and I decided to go with a cruiser pathway style tire. I also decided to replace the original 6-speed index shifter brake levers with these rapid-fire Shimano MC11 7-speed shifters. The 7-speed shifters will be a nice upgrade for this bike. I'll make sure the rear derailleur hanger is not bent, and then I'll go ahead and install the Shimano Deore XT RD-M739 derailleur using a number 5 hex wrench. I needed to change out the rear derailleur, as the original M451 would not swing wide enough for the 7-speed cassette that I'm now using. And then I'll go ahead and install the front Shimano Deore LX derailleur, again using a number 5 hex wrench, and ensure the bottom of the cage of the derailleur is about 2 millimeters above the chainring teeth. With the derailleurs installed, the chain is next. Note the routing of the chain through the derailleur, ensuring the chain is not running outside of the derailleur guides. I'll use a quick link to connect up the chain. As I'm wiring up the gears, it's interesting to note that the original Thumbie shifters that were on the bike were some of Shimano's early introduction of index shifting. Index shifting simplified gear positions, especially for novice riders, which was very cool for the time period. Also cool in my opinion were the cantilever brakes that were on the bike, which I will keep. Not only did cantilever brakes offer great stopping power, but they also offered superior clearance for wide tires, and were actually quite lightweight. Anyway, next I'll go ahead and wire up the brakes. For the back U-brakes, it's important to note that the arm should be in the fully open position, so the internal spring in the caliper preloads properly. And then I'll go ahead and wire up the rear brakes as I did for the front ones. Well, I think this 1989 bike turned out pretty good. It's great to be able to recycle these older Chro-Mo steel frames that offered a very comfortable ride. And now with the upgraded components, this resto mod transformed the bike into a practical, durable, and stylish machine for a fraction of the cost of a new bike. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.